Hello and welcome to Conversations With. I'm your host, Leigh Toney, Executive Director of the Carrie P. Meek Entrepreneurial Education Center at Miami-Dade College. Every week we try to bring to you interesting people from the world of entrepreneurship and innovation, and I'm delighted to have this guest with us today, someone that has been a pioneer really in her field for the past 27 years or more. Carole Ann Taylor owns what I would call the To Go brand enterprises. She's a serial entrepreneur, which is something that we just love to talk to our students about. She owns several companies throughout Miami-Dade County, Miami To Go, 4 stores in the Miami International Airport, Little Havana To Go in Little Havana, and years ago opened up Bayside To Go when it first opened here in Miami, in downtown Miami. Ms. Taylor, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really honored to have you.
Seldom get to do this either.
Okay, good. Glad to have you today. And I was saying to you before the show that an article came out today talking about the conference of the National Association of Women Business Owners. And what we want to get to in this kind of show is, what is the mindset of an entrepreneur? And it talked about in this article that women businesses are still undercapitalized. We still don't grow to scale in quite the same way that male-headed businesses do. And essentially that sometimes as women, we get in our own way by not being as assertive. And I call you a pioneer because none of that seems to have failed you, especially the part about being assertive, because you've gone into some markets that folks might not have expected you to be in. So can we talk about your mindset? And did you know you were breaking barriers while you were doing it?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I was never in business. I mean, I began my first business probably when I was 40. I had other careers that were so far away from entrepreneurship. I was in politics and government for most of my life. But this opportunity came along and somebody just kind of said to me, I was working in the mayor's office in Miami when Bayside was about to open, and we had determined that we had to have minorities in business at the mall, and I went about the business of trying to identify companies to come in, minority businesses, and I ended up being one of them. And the only thing that I could think of was to say, okay, they've asked me, do I want to open a store? I've never considered it, never thought about it. What would be the easiest store to do? What would be the one that would bring me something I like to do? And I thought about, why don't you be the logo store? Why don't you be the store that everybody would come to as the image store of the company, of the mall? And so that's what I asked for, and that's what they gave me. And it never occurred to me the whole time I was doing this that I didn't know what I was doing. And I really didn't. But that's exactly how I began, and I think really going forward, it's how I've done everything else that I've done. Yeah, it's almost as though you don't know what you don't know. And if you can have faith in yourself and recognize that even though you don't know it, there's a way to find it out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's something that grows in your head that says, I can do this.
And being the logo store, the image store for Bayside, then expanding to Little Havana, and then meeting the millions of visitors that come through Miami International Airport, you're right in the niche. That's the zeitgeist of who we are as a community.
Exactly. Yeah, and so the theme was, I didn't realize this, but it came out of the life that I lived, because I was always in a mode or in a job where I related to people. And so I was looking for something that would allow me to act as though what my store was the living room of Miami, And so, I like to welcome people to Miami. I enjoy it. I enjoy answering their questions, and you can't imagine what people think about when they come to a city like Miami. People assume that they get off a plane, they want to go straight to the beach. That's not so necessarily. They want to know what is Miami. And so it's really more about choosing that niche that makes you the most comfortable. And what makes me the most comfortable is satisfying people's curiosity. That's how I really grew those businesses in markets that are challenging markets, but I didn't see them as that.
People think the pathway of an entrepreneur is a straight line. Talk to us for a couple of minutes about your 30 years in this business and how you've been able to do it and sustain it for 30 years in an industry like retail and in a market like Miami.
It hasn't been easy, I'll tell you that much, because the challenges really have to do with there being nobody else around to look to for this, and people not necessarily understanding. I mean, who would have wanted to go to Little Havana 14 years ago when there were no other stores there? But I could see and feel what was coming. I just knew if I got there, they would come. And that what I was selling was something that people were really curious about. Because I began to sell Cuban memorabilia. I was selling the culture of a country. Which I also want to do in Harlem, by the way. And so I've really never, except when I first opened when we opened at Bayside, of course, they gave all of the minority businesses some grant money, lots of technical assistance, and a little bit of loan money. So that's really how I got started. How I got to Little Havana was that I sold Bayside To Go and invested in the store in Little Havana. When Bayside began to go down, I sold the business and I opened in Little Havana. I really have never gotten any financing, partially due to things that I've done, but mostly due to the fact that it's not really been available.
Let's pick that up on the other side after we take our first break, because I think that's an important point. I want to spend a few moments probing that with you. So we're here with Carole Ann Taylor, my guest on Conversations With. I hope you'll stay with us.
Cool programs for hot jobs. Let Miami-Dade College jumpstart your career. We offer bachelor's degrees in film and TV production, electronics engineering, supervision and management, and nursing. Or choose from 300 other programs. With our flexible course schedules, you can take classes during the day, evening, weekend, or online. For more info, visit MDC.edu or call 305-237-8888. Get the knowledge and training for today's in-demand jobs. Register now.
Welcome back to Conversations With. I'm your host, Leigh Toney, and my guest today is Carole Ann Taylor, owner of Miami To Go, Little Havana To Go, and now her newest enterprise, Culture To Go, which we'll talk about. But before the break, you mentioned two things, and we're students, right? And we cater to students. And the thing that our students often grapple with is, not knowing. Entrepreneurship feels too risky. I can't quite figure it out. My mom and dad don't think this is a real occupation. So it's obviously a real occupation. So how do you deal with, in your 30-year career, the not knowing, the uncertainty, managing the risk, and still moving forward?
I guess because I never see it as a risk. I always see it as an opportunity. I think it begins here. It begins there. And as long as you don't think about what you can't do, you always have to be looking and thinking about what you can do. And once you do that, there's always a way. There's always a way to get it done. I have not had many loans that I've been able to get. And then, you know, if I needed something that I didn't have, something would come along or somebody to help me make it happen. And in many times, you know, it's also kind of the way you live your life. You attract to you the things that you need to make this happen. And as long as you stay focused and open and faithful, it comes to you. Believe me, it comes to you, because you can't do it otherwise.
Your companies intersect two important things. First, tourism, which is and always has been the lifeblood of Florida, South Florida, Miami, but also this cultural piece of embracing Miami's culture and then diving in a little deeper to Cuban culture. How have you, in retail, which people kind of think is even more risky, right? So how has retail treated you? What is your outlet on retail, and what are you seeing in this merging of retail and this cultural work that you want to do?
The beauty of it is that as I have gotten more and more into this business, it's really experiential retail. It is about celebrating our neighborhoods and our cultures, and it's what I do best because it's what I feel the most. And so it's almost natural to me. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm from the Caribbean. My family's from the Caribbean. I grew up in Harlem. So I feel all of that. And then when I came to Miami, the reason I stayed in Miami, I came here kicking and screaming, was because of the cultures of Miami. What turned people off about Miami fascinated me. And I always wanted to be able to open the doors so that tourist, that visitor, that cruise ship person can go to Overtown and hear gospel music, can go to Little Haiti and get some great food, can go to hear music in Little Havana. And so I'm trying to create retail that speaks to that. And so I finally I'm beginning to put it into something called Cultures to Go, because that's what it's all the cultures and the things that and the people and the artisans and the jewelers and the designers and the craftspeople, the musicians, the people that make the spices of that. It's all of that is saleable and people want a piece of.
You're what I would call a border crosser, and meaning that you're from the Caribbean, you're of African descent, you run successful businesses in a largely traditionally Hispanic community, and you said it earlier yourself, where other people were turned off, you saw it as an opportunity, you saw it as exciting. Talk about that a little bit more, about how more and more our global economy is really for people who are comfortable crossing borders.
You know, I went to a heritage tourism conference sent by the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, because I chair the Black Hospitality Initiative in the Heritage Tourism Committee of the Bureau.
And you're also president of the Latin Chamber of Commerce as well, or the Little Havana Chamber?
I formed the Little Havana Merchants Association.
Precisely.
But that was a long time ago. It's now become the Little Havana Merchant Alliance, and I'm on that board. And I'm on the board of Cultural Friday, Viennas Culturales, and that we bring people to Little Havana the last Friday of the month. But having gone to this International Heritage Tourism Conference, you recognize that worldwide people are beginning to want more to come to places where they can actually experience the place. Not the cosmetic part of the place, but the place itself. And so I'm seeing it growing. I've been involved in it years ago, even when I was in Harlem. You know, the Harlem Chamber of Commerce and all of that, always involved in the whole tourism piece. It's what I love. But I'm now watching it. It's almost as though it's come to its time and place. And people are cognizant and recognizing, and maybe because the population's getting older and we understand more, I'm not sure, but people want that. And
tell me, how far from the center are they willing to travel to get that? So city of Miami, there's Overtown right nearby, there's Little Havana, Coconut Grove's not too terribly far from the center of town. What will that mean, or what might you think that would mean for communities like Opa-locka or Miami Gardens or Florida City? Do you also see that opportunity there for those cities as well?
Well, people go to the Everglades, okay, for a reason.
That's true.
And so if there is, number one, access, and number two, the community itself puts together the package, then as long as there's access and recognition that it exists, people will go. But you have to make it accessible, and I believe that it has to become a major focus of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, of the Beacon Council, of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce, of all of the commissioners who have neighborhoods that speak to that kind of heritage, that it's the huge opportunity in Miami to grow businesses and small businesses in these cities from the ground up.
Excellent. Let's take another break, and we'll come back and we'll ask Ms. Taylor about the nuts and bolts of her business. How often is she in her store every day? How is she able to get good staffing? Those kinds of operational things that we can share with our students that are very much the reality of an entrepreneur. Thank you, and I hope you'll stay with us.
Fresh thinking is being served at Miami-Dade College. Create your own recipe for success in the evolution of food culture at the Miami Culinary Institute. Learn the skills you need to jumpstart your career in the culinary arts. Turn green into gourmet and celery into salary. Miami Culinary Institute. Food, culture, innovation. Visit us at miamidadeculinary.com. Register now. Miami Culinary Institute.
We're back with Carole Ann Taylor, owner and founder of the to-go brands, Miami To Go, Little Havana To Go, and now Culture To Go. You mentioned in our talk that you started your first business when you were 40. And yes, a lot of women are looking to do the thing that they are most passionate about. They may already have a job, they have family responsibilities. You really took this, what some might call a second act, and that became your first act, so to speak. Tell us about what that meant. Did you realize that again?
I didn't realize it. I really didn't realize it. I knew I was taking a chance, but I had just left the mayor's office. Foray had lost, and Xavier Suarez was mayor. I stayed with him for about 6 months, and I said, you know, why not do this? It challenged me and it excited me. And, you know, I just thought I could do it. I don't think that you can dwell on, well, how do I get this done? Or I think you just look at it and say, I can make this happen. who can I bring around me to help me make this happen? And you can get that done. It honestly is a faith-based mindset. It's pure and simply that. You cannot think about what you can't do. If you are looking to expand and do something different, or go into business on your own. I mean, when I look back now, I realize that I have supported myself and both of my sons for the last 27 years. I never think about that, but we were able to make that happen. I have a son. I have two great sons, One is in politics. One took one side of me. Mm-hmm. He's in government. And the other one started working in the store at Bayside, and he's been working with us ever since, and he now runs the business and is about to own the business in Little Havana. And it is his passion. And, and he has taken the same position that I've taken. I can make this happen.
That's a nice story. Family succession and passing on the family business.
Which is really, really important.
Which doesn't happen as often as people might think.
No,
that
it doesn't. And I came from a Baptist minister and a social worker. So, I knew nothing about this side, the financial. It's been a difficult thing for me. What has been most difficult is really the whole financial piece of understanding and learning how to work it financially. You can make everything. You can make everything happen. But you've got to get a real education about cash flow and reading financial statements, and all of that is something that I really taught myself. If I had it to do again, mm-hmm. I would probably encourage young people to get a better understanding, and you can do it at the same time. But make sure you get that grounding. I to this day, I go to as many classes, SCORE classes, and South Florida workforce classes that I can go to, because every time I go, I learn something I did not know before. So you have to constantly educate yourself in this business.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you do social media at all in any of your businesses? Facebook, Twitter?
And that's why I am. As a matter of fact, we just this year begun the on-site Cultures to Go website, and I'm learning as I go, because we're actually physically taking the individual designers, taking the pictures of their craft or their jewelry, putting it up ourselves. That's something that I'm so far behind in, but I'm catching up. Like I said, I go to all the SCORE classes, because you can't live today and not be in that world.
Absolutely.
So I'm learning, and thank goodness I have younger people around me, like you and others, that are teaching me.
How's hiring? Are you able to keep the staffing that you want?
I've been blessed. As a matter of fact, my first employee at Bayside, I took her with me when I went to the airport, and she worked with me in duty free. I was in duty free at the airport for 10 years before I opened my own stores out there, and she's still out there. Hmm. I have another employee that helps Jason and I to manage the store in Little Havana. She also is manager of the stores at the airport, 2 of the stores at the airport. And she's been with us since, probably 2003. I've been blessed. But you really have to train people. And at the airport in particular, it's a constant training. It's a constant training. They do customer service surveys. They do secret shopping.
Absolutely.
You deal with people who speak every language you can imagine.
It's the front door, as you said earlier.
It's the front door.
Absolutely.
It's the front door. And so it's a constant challenge to keep them on their toes and help them to understand how to sell, how to engage, how to be friendly, It's not an easy thing. There's a big turnover, you know, when it comes to staffing.
Let me ask you this. A lot of women have what they call side hustles. Do you think you would have been able to grow the business that you have while still maintaining a full-time job?
No, because I tell you what, in 1989, after I'd been at Bayside for 2 years, I decided I was going to run for city commission. And I almost lost my business in those 9 months that I was campaigning. You cannot. You either do one thing or the other. You mean, can you work? I mean, to get it started, yes. If this is your dream and you have the responsibility of bringing home a check every day and you have to be in your job, you can make that happen. That's not what I mean. I mean that if you are in this all the time, that's where you have to be. You cannot stray and say I'm gonna take a position. You can't. You know, you're either doing this or you're not doing it.
So, what parting advice would you give our students about entrepreneurship?
The thing that I recognize about Miami, and I don't care what color you are, or whether you're a man or a woman, what I always want to make young people understand is that this city is one of the youngest cities in America. And if you decide to stay in Miami, which you should, by the way, there are 1 million opportunities in Miami. All you have to do is decide what you can do well, what is your niche, and you can grow that niche and be almost a big fish in a little pond in a town or a city as big as Miami. Because there's still so many levels in Miami that have not been saturated. So don't ever think that there's no place for you to go and nothing for you to do here. As an entrepreneur, you have every opportunity in the world in a city like Miami, number one. Number two, make sure that whatever you are pursuing, you pursue it with your whole heart and your whole head, and that you study all the time. I don't mean you don't have to go get good degrees and all of that, but the other thing about Miami is that there are classes and opportunities to learn every single day in Miami, and take advantage of them. And if you need money, you will find a way to get money.
And we'll let that be the last word.
And that's the last word.
And that's a powerful last word. And I still
really
see the gleam
true.
in your eye. So I know
true.
there's more coming from Carole Ann Taylor. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm glad you gave me this opportunity.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you accepted. And thank you for joining us as well at Conversations With. We could do a part 2 of this with Carole Ann Taylor. Thank you, and I hope you'll tune in with us next time.